Would you believe me if I said that I have a driver's license in Canada and I have no idea how to parallel park? I mean, I could probably pull it off with like 10,000 attempts if there's nobody around me, but I would never be able to parallel park between two cars, never mind on a busy street. In fact, sometimes I struggle to park at 90 degrees in a regular parking lot. So Xenia, you may ask, how did you get your driver's license? Did you bribe somebody or something? Good question. But first of all, welcome to my channel where I help new immigrants in Canada to settle down and become successful and explain how to make this country their new home. And in today's video, I'm going to explain why it is important to get a driver's license in Canada and how you can do it too. Whether you are a new immigrant or you just moved from another province, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide of the entire process. I will explain what you can expect, which documents you need, and of course how to make this process easier. Stick till the end of this video because I'm going to explain how I got my driver's license, and spoiler alert, no, I did not bribe anybody, but we'll get to it later. So in Canada, driver's license is not just about driving. It's actually one of the main official government-issued photo IDs. And I find that it's very convenient because you don't need to carry extra documents with you. You just put it on your wallet and have it ready whenever you need it. And I know that it's not like this in other countries because, for example, I come from Russia, and for us, the only official accepted ID is your passport. Yes, we have a passport for traveling, and we have another passport for internal purposes, and you can imagine a passport is like this big, so it's not necessarily very convenient to always have it with you. So here in Canada, you can use your driver's license for different purposes. For example, you can open a bank account, you can access different public services, or you can even travel within Canada between different provinces. So even if you're not planning to drive just yet, it's still a good idea to get a driver's license because A, it's going to serve as your ID, and B, it actually takes some time to get a driver's license, so it's better to apply early so that you have it ready when the time comes. So the first thing you need to know is that Canada uses a graduated licensing system, which means that you have to go through multiple different steps before you become a fully licensed driver. Each province has slightly different names and slightly different rules, but generally the process is the same across the country. So your journey starts with a learner's permit. And like I said, the name differs from province to province. For example, in Ontario, it's called G1 license. In Saskatchewan or Nova Scotia, it's Class 7. And in Quebec, it's just an authorized driver's permit. This is the first step of the licensing process, and during this step you will need to pass a written knowledge test of the road rules, road signs, and the safe driving practices. It's not too hard, but it's very important to prepare, especially if you have driver's experience from a different country, because Canadian rules can be very different. There's no need to register for any learning courses. You just take an appointment in your local, provincial, or territorial Department of Transportation. For example, here in Quebec, it is called SAAQ, or Société de l'Assurance Automobile du Québec. You're going to need to bring some documents like your ID, maybe your social insurance number, your proof of residency, and pay a small fee, usually between $15 and $20. A couple things to know about this test is that this is a multiple choice test, usually about 40 questions. Sometimes it may be split into two different sections, one for rules and one for road signs, and you will need to get at least 80% on this test to pass. Take a note that some provinces offer this test in different languages. For example, in Alberta, you can take this test in 25 different languages. For example, this includes Spanish, Chinese, Russian, or even Dutch. But honestly, I highly recommend that you take this test in English or French if you're going to stay in Canada long term, because it's important to know the rules and the different names in English or French in one of the official languages in Canada. To prepare for the test, download the official handbook from the government website of your province. They are available online for free, or you can also buy a printed copy. And you can also watch YouTube videos. YouTube is a great source. There's a lot of different channels that will explain the rules, the road signs, and the common mistakes. And don't forget to practice, because sometimes reading the handbook is not enough, especially if you're busy or if English is not your first language. Thankfully, there are some awesome apps for your phone that you can use to study anytime, anywhere. For example, if you're waiting for your bus or during your coffee break. So once you pass the knowledge test, congratulations, you're officially a learner driver. But you're not on the road just yet. You can actually start driving, but with some restrictions. First of all, you cannot drive alone. You need to have somebody in the car with you who has a full license and more than 4 years of experience. You also cannot drive on any of the 400 series highways. Those are usually Trans-Canadian highways. Or you cannot drive during night hours between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m. And finally, it is strictly prohibited to drink alcohol or smoke cannabis. And yes, as a reminder, it is legal in Canada. So driver's license is valid for 5 years and you need to wait between 8 and 12 months before you move to the next stage. So the next stage of your journey is probationary license. And again, it has different names in different provinces. For example, in Ontario, it's called G2. In British Columbia, it's Class 7. In Alberta, I think it's Class 5. And in Quebec, it's called Permis Probatoire, which literally means probationary license. This is going to be your first real driver's license where you can drive without supervision. You've already proven that you understand the rules, and now it's time for you to prove that you can actually follow them on the road. So now to get this license, you will need to pass a road test. But first, like I said, you're going to need to wait between 8 and 12 months before you get to this stage. However, if you take one of the government-approved courses, you might be able to do it sooner. Technically, you're not required to take an official course. It's enough to just practice with somebody who has more than 4 years of experience. Just make sure that you get comfortable with things like city driving, highway driving, parking, and tricky things like four-way stops and roundabouts. But even after you pass your road test and you get your probationary license, you still need to follow some restrictions. First of all, you are still not allowed to drink any alcohol. Second, there is a passenger limit, so there's a limited amount of people who can be in the car with you. You're not allowed to use any handheld devices, not even to check GPS, and you're also going to get stricter penalties for things like speeding or distracted driving. This stage is designed to give you a real-life driving experience to keep you and everybody else safe. This stage usually lasts between 12 and 24 months depending on the province, and once you're done with this stage, then you can finally take your full license driving test. This would be called G-Test in Ontario or Class 5 in Alberta. And at this point, it's not just about basic driving anymore. They want to see that you can handle real-life advanced driving situations. For example, entering and exiting highways, switching lanes at high speeds, defensive driving techniques, soft turns, proper spacing, safe lane positioning, and 360 degrees awareness. You need to check your blind spots, look in your mirrors, and scan intersections. And I highly recommend that you take a couple of driving lessons if you feel unsure. They're going to correct your bad habits and make sure that you are test ready. And by the way, in Quebec, you do not need to take this second exam. You automatically qualify for a full driver's license after the end of this probationary period. Although in Quebec, you have to wait 2 years, but still, you do not need to go through this additional hassle. And once you pass, congratulations, you now have a full license and you are a fully qualified driver. And this means that you don't have any restrictions anymore. No more passenger limits, no more curfew limits, and you can even consume alcohol within limits, of course. The legal limit for alcohol consumption in Canada is 80 milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood, and for a man of an average size and weight, this would be about 4 to 5 standard drinks within 2 hours, and for a woman, it would be about 3 to 4 drinks, although I still do not recommend to consume any alcohol if you're planning to drive. And it's a huge milestone because it gives you so much freedom, especially if you live outside of big cities where public transport is not always well developed. And my final advice here is drive safely and always stay updated on the rules. And remember that your license can be suspended if you have too many violations, so don't get too comfortable. And now to the most interesting part. With all of these steps, how did I manage to get a driver's license without taking any of these tests? Well, the thing is that in Canada, you can actually exchange an existing driver's license if you have one from a different country, but it depends where it is from. If your country has a reciprocal agreement with a Canadian province, you do not need to take a knowledge test or the driving test. You can just get a new license here. And if you come from a non-exempt country, unfortunately, you're going to have to go through these steps, although you may save some time if they count some of your driver's experience, but you're going to have to find out how exactly it's going to work. So yes, I come from Russia, and Russia does not have a reciprocal agreement with any of the Canadian provinces, but I had studied in the United States for 2 semesters before I came to Canada. In the States, especially in small towns like Orlando, where I studied, unfortunately, public transport is not well developed to the point where I had no way to get to a grocery store. I used to bike to the nearest drugstore, Walgreens. Luckily, there was some food available there. And luckily, getting a driver's license in the States is super easy. It literally took me like 1 month. All you have to do is pass a written exam in one of the DMVs and then to pass a road exam. And I can't even describe how easy it was. All I had to do was change lanes, stop correctly, obey traffic signs, do some simple parking, and a 3-point turn. No city driving, no highway driving, and of course, no parallel parking. Not even parking between 2 cars in a parking lot. As long as you can position yourself between 2 lines, you're good. And that's it. Once you pass this test, you get a full driver's license. No restrictions, no waiting periods. So how exactly did I learn how to drive in Orlando? Well, my father actually had a friend who used to teach in the university that I went to, and he taught me to drive using his wife's minivan. At that point, it was a Mazda 5. So when I came to Canada, I qualified for an exchange, and I live in Quebec, so I got a probationary license right away. And as I mentioned earlier, in Quebec, you do not need to have this second exam before you get a full driver's license. All you have to do is just wait 2 years after you get your probationary license. And the funny part is that I didn't really drive during those 2 years. First of all, because I lived within a city, so I could use public transport very easily. And second, I just couldn't really afford a car. And eventually I got a job on the other side of the city, so at that point I had no choice but to get a car. But the problem was that I completely forgot how to drive. So my husband, then boyfriend, had to teach me practically from scratch. So I didn't take a full course, I just learned the skills that were most relevant to me. For example, driving on the highway, switching lanes, or parking in the parking lot. I never really had to go downtown, so I didn't practice city driving, although I did try to parallel park a couple times. But again, I never had to do it, so I didn't master that skill either. And to this day, I normally just drive on the highway or in the residential area, on small streets or on wide boulevards. And I usually park in the regular parking lot at 90 degrees, and very rarely I have to park between 2 cars, because wherever I go, usually there's enough parking. But even though I'm lucky having skipped all of those steps, I do not recommend following my example. Because of my limited driving experience, I feel very limited. If ever I have to go downtown, I take public transport. If ever I go to a parking lot and there's limited space, I usually try to park far away so that I don't have to park between 2 cars. So this is my story and my step-by-step guide on how to get your first driver's license in Canada. And if you found this video useful, don't forget to like and share with your friends so that more people can see this video. And of course, subscribe for more tips on how to make Canada your new home.